Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this edition of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. We have a packed show for you this evening as we look ahead to the knockout stages in the Clare Senior Football Championship and also in the Intermediate Football Championship. While there's relegation also to be decided at senior level and intermediate level, while also there is 2 Junior A football semi-finals that are down for showdown this weekend. First of all, we'd like to congratulate Partine GA Football Club on winning the first senior football championship, first adult football championship competition of the year. They won the Junior B football championship, beating Kilrush Shamrock second side. So Partine will advance to represent Clare and Munster in the Junior B competition in Knocknaderry, and from next year now they will be competing as a Junior A grade. So congratulations to Partine. But it's the senior football where we start off first of all this evening, and the first clash we have is Kilmorey Bricken, who booked their place fairly comfortably in the group of death in Group A, booked their place with a few games to spare. They come against Kilmehel, who had to go through the hard way, finishing third place in their group, and then overcoming Dunbeg in a West Clare derby the last day out to clinch a quarter-final spot. The prize for that is Kilmorey Bricken. And Seamus, Kilmorey Bricken without Shane Hickey, without Dermot Coughlin, and I know Dear McKing now has picked up a cruciate injury, but they've sort of they've got to this quarterfinals stage with a bit to spare really, and they're fairly comfortably so, and the injuries haven't hampered them so far. Could they hamper them this weekend out, or are they managing? Is the squad of Kilmorey Bricken really beginning to show its depth at this moment?
I would think it is. I think they've got stronger as the season has gone on. They had a very bad start to the year, if you like, getting some heavy defeats in the early rounds of the league. But gradually they have got players back from injury, players who maybe had indicated earlier in the year that they mightn't play or whatever. But the squad has got stronger as the season has gone on, and I would suggest that they're in a good position right now. They're not as strong as maybe they were for the past couple of years, but their bench has been getting stronger, and obviously they will start the game as favourites, against the Kilmehel side. I suppose that maybe has surprised some people in getting to this stage of the competition, but equally I would suggest that Kilmehel would be boosted big time by the win over Dunbeg. Wins for Kilmehel over Dunbeg have been rare in modern times, and more often than not, Dunbeg have come out on top, and on occasions maybe Kilmehel would have been the better team on the day, but were unable to get over the line. But I think Kilmehel, have received great confidence from the win over Dunbeg, so I would expect them to make life tough for Kilmorey Bricken. But realistically, anything other than a Kilmorey Bricken win would be seen as a big surprise.
Yeah, and I suppose, Nicholas, that wing over Dunbeg is going to do the power of good in terms of confidence. But as you said, as Seamus said, any task that's been put in front of Kilmorey Bricken so far, bar the draw with Milltown, and even that draw, they sort of look comfortable for long stages. They've yet really to hit maybe full gear as of yet. So is that a warning sign as Kilmorey Bricken now beginning to see the road down to another sort of county final? And if they could pick a game, probably this is probably one of the games they would have wanted. Although the Odrian or Dwyer factor is probably going to kick into some bit of a play, but Kilmorey probably just have too many resources.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Kilmorey are in the place where they really want to be now. They have come through the group and came through it with ease, as Seamus had said. They drew the first day, but as you rightly said, they weren't really out of first gear in that first game, or neither were Milltown either. But for Kilmehel to have beaten Dunbeg, it was a big achievement for them. A big game to win against the big club. But you're after beating Dunbeg, and you turn around and there you have probably the top team in Clare that you're facing. It makes it an awful hard test from now again to get another win like that, to be two big teams in the trot. It's got to be a very big ask for Kilmehel And as Seamus said, I certainly didn't expect the Kilmahead would still be in the championship at this stage, but they have fought hard and fought, and in particularly against Dunbig, where they turned it around and they came out with a 3-point victory. So, but you'd have to be really optimistic to think that Kilmahead can beat Kinmaria Brecon. But it's a 2-horse race, I suppose. At the same time, and if they can apply themselves the same as they did against Dunbig, and who knows, Kinmaria Brecon with a few injuries, but they have a very strong squad. They're well coached and they're well managed, and they back themselves every time. And that's the thing about Kinmaria Brecon, is that the Kinmaria Brecon know that Kinmaria Brecon, if you know what I mean. And that's very hard. That's going to be very hard for Kilmahead to break down. I feel, because the confidence that's in Kilmaria Brecon at the moment, like, is sky high. But that Kilmahead are there, and they're there on merit, and we just have to wait and see.
I suppose we'll bring you on to the next game now, Ennistimon versus Éire Óg. And Éire Óg, the first day out, obviously accounted for Lissy Casey with ease. Many people thought Éire Óg would be nailed on as one of the strong championship contenders. Then sort of flattered to deceive against Clondegad the second day out, but then fairly comfortable against Dunbeg. So it's hot, cold. It's been hot, cold, and mediocre for Éire Óg so far. While Ennistimon the first day out were all at sea against Kilmaria Brecon, but as the championship came on, they got better and better and better, and it culminated with a decisive victory over Cratloe the last day out. So I'll start with you, Nicholas. This game is hard to judge, really, but Ennistimon are showing that they're getting better and better each day out, and Éire Óg are showing that they're blowing hot and cold and hot and mediocre. So it's a case that if Éire Óg don't produce the performance they produced against Lissy Casey, anything but that performance, then maybe we're saying Ennistimon to come through. But if Éire Óg produce the performance that they produced against Lissy Casey, then you'll be probably pushing your vote towards Éire Óg. So it's basically what Éire Óg side turns up, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that's a lot of it is what Éire Óg side turns up. I mean, Éire Óg are a fine team, there's no doubt about that. But they can be a bit complacent at times as well, like, and their form has been a little bit up and down, and if you look at it this time, and they started off as I said, poorly, like, but they improved game on game, and the last 10 minutes against Cratloe, they really played their best, like the best football they've ever played, I'd say. In the energy that they brought against Cratloe in that final 10 minutes, and they got the goal at the end as well, like, to put the icing on the cake. But they really brought that energy, and if they can bring that against Éire Óg, I would give them a great chance. It's, as you said, right, you said it's very hard to call. Éire Óg are, Éire Óg are capable of winning and getting to the final, certainly. But in this time when improving, a young team gaining confidence, beginning to sort out the attack as well. It's getting stronger. That's stronger than the attack that we thought they would have. We thought they might be lacking there, but they certainly weren't against Cratloe. And as the year has gone on, they've settled into nicely, and they're playing nice football and great energy. And as the way they finished that game against Cratloe, you will give them every chance of doing the same, but they'll have to come out with confidence, and they'll have to play for the full 70 minutes. But it's 50-50 game, I think.
Seamus, just your opinions on Ennistimon and Éire Óg. We saw Cathal Malone limp out the last day, replaced by David Fitzgerald. Obviously, if he wasn't to play, it'd be a huge factor. Éire Óg have had their bit of injury problems throughout the year as well, with Ecom and Gavin Cooney to note. But this sort of a game, if all the key elements and the key players are on display for both sides, we saw in the past that Ennistimon have taken down a much fancied Éire Óg side in this particular stage of the championship before, and that was due to midfield dominance of Malone and David Fitzgerald. How do you see this one going now that Darren O'Neill's back in the fray? Rogue be much stronger in that middle third if Innistymen go out and try and repeat what worked for them the last time?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to call. I feel, I think there's a couple of things coming into play. From what I'm hearing, Carl Malone is out. He hasn't trained since, and what we all know, hamstring injuries take a number of weeks to heal. I think the dual player thing has become, I suppose, a big factor in Clare GA and maybe in every other county. And a lot of clubs are finding it hard at times to manage that. The dual club issue is a bigger issue, again, where you have a lot of players playing both codes. Rogue are still in the running in both senior championships. They're in the quarterfinals of both, and there's maybe half their team playing both. And managing that and trying to avoid injuries, it is a big problem, I suppose, for any team. And I suppose Rogue are no different. There's no doubt about it that on form, when Rogue are at the height of their powers, they're very difficult to beat and they're good enough to win the championship. Innistymen have had so much success at underage level in the past half dozen years in particular, that everybody would accept that has to come to fruition at header level sometime. They're playing maybe more and more of those young fellas this year. You have the Rowins, you have Diarmuid Fahy, you have Kieran McMahon. These fellas are great footballers, and we've seen them come through underage teams in Clare, and they all had a big say in Innistymen's win the last day out over Cratloe, the win that put him into this position now into the quarter final. So Odin O'Dwyer was with them this year. He's doing a lot of work there, and obviously he's an experienced man, and he knows how to coach teams. So that'll be a factor I would expect. It's a very difficult one to call, I find. I think it's the most difficult of the quarterfinals to call from the point of view that which team will turn up for either club. They've mixed the good with the bad this year. Rogue were good, and then they were not so good, and then they were mediocre. And Innistymen, I suppose, disappointed earlier on, and they have disappointed on a couple of occasions in the past couple of years. But the last day they didn't fall down when lads might have expected them to fall down, and they finished strongly to overcome an experienced Cratloe team. Probably Rogue will start as slight favourites, but either way, there's whichever side will come out on top. It won't surprise. I think both are capable of beating the other. So I really expect an intriguing game, if you like, and there'll be a lot of tactics, and there'll be a lot of questions as to who's going to be man marking who, and all that would have a part to play in it. And do you have sweepers, or don't you have a sweeper, or do you go all out and go into full attack? Now, Carl Malone will be lost, assuming he's out. There's no doubt about that. Gavin Cooney, I think, is back to nearly full fitness. It was a hand injury he had, and he had played a part in the last game or two in the hurling, especially. I don't know what the fitness level or state of Iker Miguero is at this stage. He's been troubled by a leg injury during the year. A fit Iker Miguero will cause problems for any opposition. So there are ifs and buts, and I suppose neither side will know the full extent of who's available until maybe near match time. But Rogue probably slight favourites, but it's going to be very tight.
And Seamus, I'll stay with you now, and I'll bring you on to the next game. And it involves your own club, Lissy Casey, and you sort of cautioned there at the start of the year that Dore Bearfield will take a scalp before this championship is over. So it's probably not the team that you wanted to see Lissy Casey face in the quarterfinal. But there it is. And I suppose Lissy Casey did the job against Clondegad very comfortably the last day out. And Dore Bearfield, after that impressive showing over the victory over Kilmahel, put it up to stages for Brickens, but Brickens never really sort of looked like they were going to lose that game. So both teams sort of like Cusick Park as well. Both teams young, sort of fast, sort of football type in game. But how do you see this? Obviously, Lissy Casey being in the county semi-final last year, they'll be looking to get back into one this year around. So they probably know what's expected of Dore Bearfield, but then again, Dore Bearfield are not going to fear Lissy Casey either.
No, you're right, and I think the Dore Bearfield probably started out this year worried, about what lay ahead, and concerned that they would hold on to their senior status in their first season back up. I think that was their biggest issue. And I think once that was assured, I think their confidence has grown. They have nothing to lose. They're a young team, but they're very talented, very skillful, very lively from what I've seen. I've seen them twice, and I've been very impressed by their movement. A lot of very good footballers. The dual situation, they're in the intermediate hurling semi-final, and trying very, very hard to get back up to senior. The most people in the parish would see them as a senior, that they should be competing at senior level. Half the players, I think, play both codes. So again, managing that and avoiding injury. You're right. Casey were in the semi-final last year. Haven't really got back to the form that they showed last year in getting that far in the championship. Haven't produced that form yet this year, but have improved. Like, well beaten by Aero in the first round. Really, really well beaten. And then came back well, and in a difficult game, I suppose, against Clondigad, their fellow parishioners, there was a lot at stake. They played well. I think they have improved a good bit, and if they can maintain that form, they're in with a great chance. They probably will carry the favourites tag, but it's one that they have to be very wary of. And I'm not saying that now just to try and protect them or anything because of my own club. I really think that St. Joseph's, have loads of talent. They're very well organised. They're really committed to football as they are to their hurling. But this group are very committed to the game, and they have a very good management. I think they're really going to put it up to Lissycasey, but I would accept that Lissycasey carry the favourites tag.
Nicholas, your thoughts on that game? Would you share the Seamus's tiny bit of concerns? But obviously, if you look on paper, if you give Lissycasey the options on paper, they would have probably picked either Kilmehel or Dore Bearfield as their probable favourable opponents. So they've got what they wanted as well. So you'd imagine that they probably have that bit of experience over a Dore Bearfield that are growing and getting better and better. But then again, if you offered the ties on paper, Dore Bearfield probably would have accepted Lissycasey as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose, Jim, you should always be careful what you wish for. And one of the hurling teams last week was very pleased with the draw they got, but they came out the wrong side of it. Which Lissycasey didn't start off well this year, obviously, but it was in the first round that they just didn't show up against their Rogue, and I was expecting a lot more from particularly the way they played last year. But I think now they have regrouped, and if you're not going to play well, and if it's in the first round and you get away with it, like, and you're in it, and you're obviously in the quarter final, like, they've been able to work on their game. And that's apparently what they have done, because they're in this quarter final. But they're playing a Bearfield team that have, as Seamus rightly pointed out, they have nothing to lose. They came up from intermediate just to wanted to keep their status. But now that they have maintained that, they'll be saying, like, guys, let's take another step. And they're a very young team, and well coached and well managed, obviously. They're involved in the hurlers. The hurlers are going well as well. So, and when you're young, that's great. You can probably manage a dual club better when you don't have the mileage on the clock. But I personally, and it's very hard to call, but Lissycasey, I think I'd be giving the nod to Lissycasey anyway, in the way that they're coming nicely. That game against Clondigad would have brought them on a ton as well. And they'll really know where their strengths and weaknesses are now. And they have some players that up in the attack there that will be able to win the game. It's going to be a tight game, very hard game. All these quarterfinals are hard to call, as far as I can see. With the exception of maybe Kinmurray or Bricken, we would all agree that they are favourites. But this one is going to be a close affair. But I would imagine the pedigree that Lissycasey have might see them over the line over the youthful St. Joseph's, who have just come up. Like, it's no easy task to come up from intermediate and you're playing senior. It's a hold, it's a pace faster, it's a yard faster. Everything, like, simple things, can catch you out when you're playing against senior clubs who've done it all and are doing it year in, year out. So on that score as well, I would give the nod to Lissy Casey. But it's a really game that's really looking forward to seeing it. And, it can fall either way, really, I suppose. But we'll go with Lissy Casey anyway, my fiver anyway.
Nicholas, I'll bring you on to the final game, Milltown versus St. Brickens. And I was just looking at this game, I see in terms of this, and St. Brickens, to make that breakthrough, they've come through roughly sort of group. They'll probably look at Milltown. And personally, from watching Milltown this season, I thought Cracklow should have beaten them. I thought Innis Diamond should have beaten them. They came out with a draw with Kilmurray-Bricken, which probably Kilmurray-Bricken were disappointed. So Owen Cleary has got Milltown out of jail a good lot this year so far. If Brickens maybe apply a strategy of dropping starting someone at wing forward and dropping them back and maybe double teaming Owen Cleary, playing a player in front of him, given that the rest of the Milltown team aren't really performing to the standards that they were performing 2 or 3 years ago, is that the real challenge for Brickens? If they can stop Owen Cleary, that given their current form, they're in with a real sort of shout here. But it's just a question, do they have those man markers, those defenders in defence? Because Milltown haven't been pouring, as we know, Milltown of late anyway, certainly not this year.
Yeah, well, any team would be concerned if it was an Owen Cleary around the place, but there's more than Owen Cleary there for Milltown, in fairness, just that he is the go-to man, and obviously he's a big name in Clare football, so obviously he's going to get a bit of extra attention, but you can't put too much on, double marking the player is going to leave you open as well. Brickens are a good attacking team, and they play a very attacking football. The only thing that might go against Brickens, I think, is the weather has changed now. And I noticed Cusick Park, and I'm sure every pitch is going to be the same now, where it has slowed everything up. And a seasoned team like Milltown, I think that's going to play into their hands, and they're a strong physical team. Whereas Brickens seem to be use the ball a lot more, I think, and very lively, very fast forwards. And that just might go a little bit against them. But Owen Cleary is certainly meant to watch out for. Certainly, that's why we all go into Cusick Park and places like that to see the likes of Owen Cleary and see what he can do. But Brickens will be keeping an eye on him. But they have there's 14 others as well. And often in a day like that, when you're keeping, if you keep the eye on one man, somebody else can pop up and do the damage so it's something to manage. But I would push Milltown as favourites, obviously, with the experience they have over the last number of years. But Brickens are threatening, and they're not far from making a big breakthrough and maybe getting to county final as well. So it's another big game, it's another hard one to call. But the likes of Owen Cleary and his brother will have no ball playing, and they're out there around the middle of the field, a big strong man, Conor Cleary, who does an awful lot of the hard work, and he's a telepathic, he's a twin of Owen, and he knows exactly where to find him every time as well, and that's something that Brickens will have to watch out for as well.
Seamus, just your own thoughts on this game as well. I suppose for Brickens to make that step or breakthrough, there's only so many years you stay at the top where you have to take that big feat or that big scalp to get on to the next level before you start to drop off or you wane back into the pack. Now, you feel that Brickens are coming towards that sort of age, but that old midfield sort of battle as well there. Do they have the midfielders there to break even? Although from Milltown so far this season, they've been playing Conor Cleary at centre forward, which hasn't really worked out for them at all. You expect him to drop back into midfield. But if Brickens can get a grab on that sort of midfield area and put the Sean O'Brien's kickouts under trouble as well, do you think there's possibilities here? And how do you see this game?
Brickens are a very talented team, very talented squad of players. Play very, very fast-moving brand of football, and I genuinely expect them to really make life difficult for Milltown. This is a huge test for Brickens. They were a kick of a ball away from being in the county final last year, and maybe a bit unlucky that they didn't at least go to extra time with Cratlow, or get over that game. Milltown, I suppose a lot of people would agree that Milltown haven't produced their best form this year. They've struggled a little. They started the year well and were doing very well in the league, but their form dipped a little. Now, the last day I saw them against Clare, they got a real battle from Clare. Now, Owen Cleary wasn't playing. Shawnee Maloney wasn't playing. Shawnee Malone wasn't playing in that game. I understand they're both fit and will be in line to play this week. Cormac Murray stepped up to the plate the last day. Owen Cleary was absent. Cormac Murray stepped up with 1-5. He was under freeze. We all know what he's capable of. He has plenty of talent. Darren McDonough was at full forward last week against Clare, got the early goal and can move out to midfield when they need him. Conor Cleary played the full game the last day at midfield and was very influential there. And he has been getting better, all the time for a man that most of his games this year would have been hurling up to the start of the championship. He wouldn't have played any league with Milltown because of his commitment to Clare hurling. But he's been getting better with every outing. And I think Milltown are probably in a better place now. Now there is a bit of concern amongst our followers that they still haven't hit their top form. This really has the makings of a great game. Talking to supporters around the county, football followers, they seem to be divided 50-50 as to who might win this one. Experience probably is on Milltown's side. But Brecons have some of the best young footballers. We said that about Innes Diamond as well. But fellas like Joe McGann, Alan Sweeney, these fellas, Dale Masterson, Mackinburn at centre back. These fellas have been doing very well, and I'm really looking forward to this. They're exceptionally well coached by Declan O'Keefe's influence is huge there. The former Kerry goalkeeper who's involved with Clare as well. He's done a massive amount of work. Tony Gary is a very shrewd manager, and he's put everything in place. So I know from talking to people in Milltown, this is one that they are really been very wary of, and they're really taking it very serious. But then again, you have a very experienced background team in Milltown. What you call him, Michael Nealon, David O'Brien, Owen Murray, these fellas, they've been through it before. They know what's required, and this is really going to be. It could well be the contest of the weekend, I think. I think this one could be the contest of the weekend. Marginal vote, I would give to Milltown, but again, I won't be surprised if Brecons turn them over because they have the ability to do it. They have some of the best talent around, but experience would suggest Milltown would just about take it.
And Seamus, I'll start with you again in terms of the relegation playoff game. Clare and Clondegad, it's best to know that Kilrush Shamrocks got the bye, so they will meet the winners in terms of determining the final team that will go down. I suppose for Clare and Clondegad, they probably didn't want to draw each other, but they probably realised that there was a possibility that they would have to play each other at some stage anyway with a 3-team sort of phase. Clare probably are showing the best form to date in terms of coming through that sort of group, but this is a one-off game with so much on the line. You just don't know, and really in terms of who's going to want it that bit more. I suppose it's all about wanting it at the weekend in terms of that, and the start as well. It's going to be a very sort of nervy sort of encounter with so much on the line.
Yeah, there's a huge amount on the line. Like, these are two clubs. I suppose Clondegad have been very close to major honours, if you like, in the last half dozen years. They contested the county final, they've been up there at the top. Maybe Clare have struggled a little, but Clare have never been anything other than a senior club. So there's a huge amount at stake, senior status, would be a massive blow, I suppose, if you like. And there are two clubs gone down. So, which means only one can get back up next year, and it may be neither of the two that will go down because there are other clubs coming strong at intermediate level. So, from that point of view, there's a lot at stake. Yeah, you rightly say, I suppose, in this championship, Clare have been a little unlucky that they didn't get a win or two. They have really put it up to a few clubs. Very unlucky against Kilmurray or Brecon. Really put it up to Milltown last time out. They've put it up to a lot of opponents. I suppose the game that cost Clondegad, again, I suppose, was the first round against Dundee. And the first round games, in a number of cases, proved problematic for teams that were fancied to win, and now they're left in a spot. They have great experience, and how long can Gary Brennan keep producing it? He's going to be a marked man probably this week. Corotare have been coming, but I would be loath to rule out Clondigad. They probably have the more experience, and if they can just get an early grip on the game, they're going to be hard to dislodge. But of all the games this weekend, where the championship quarterfinals are huge, in particular for the participants, this is the game that's attracted maybe most neutral attention. Because people see what's at stake. It's a massive. There's a massive amount at stake here for the future of the clubs. Nobody wants for clubs that have been so strong at senior level, and your senior team is your flagship team, and the other teams in your club kind of build on or do what they do on the back of seeing what their seniors do. So from that point of view, it would be a massive blow to either of them to lose their status. Now, to win on Sunday doesn't guarantee that they're up either, because they still have to face another game, but at least it would give a massive lift to whoever can get up on top. And a lot will depend on injuries. What injuries either have, is there anyone ruled out? Clare said that they're missing one or two. The fellow going away to overseas for a wedding, and you have all that. Podge McMahon has missed a lot of the year for Clondigad. Very talented footballer, has the ability to trouble any defence. Is he fit enough for a full game? Killian Brennan has missed the last couple of weeks, although he was back hurling last week because of a troublesome hamstring injury. All those fellas are needed. It's an intriguing fixture, and probably at this stage the public view would be the Corotare are slight favourites based on their form in the last couple of games. But then again, will they have the American contingent, as they call them? They have two fellas in America whom they brought home for a game each in the early rounds of the championship. They come back, if they dislodge somebody that's already in the team, does that upset the team? There's all sorts of questions. So it's definitely a massive, massive fixture. There's no doubt in the world about that, and there won't be much in it.
Nicholas, just your thoughts on this. Two big clubs, as we know, and all the talk is whether Sean O'Donoghue is going to play, and also Killian Brennan obviously missed the last few rounds for Clondigad. Is he going to play? I suppose either one of those players coming in, if both come in, obviously it's going to boost both teams' chances, but either one of those players could actually make the difference on the day. If Killian was available for Clondigad, it could shut down one of Corotaire's main attackers, while if Sean O'Donoghue was available for Corotare, could just give him that target in the full forward line to provide that goal threat. So in terms of that, it's all about what starting 15s take to the field as well. There's a bit of the unknown about that as well this weekend.
Yeah, well, the two players I mentioned there are going to be a boost to both teams if they're around, and if they're not, they're going to be, going out without either of them will be a big loss too. And on what is a big game, as Seamus said, Seamus put a lot of emphasis on how big this game it is, and it's going to define their whole year. Are you going to be senior next year? Or are you going to be intermediate? And for two big clubs, and in particular Corotare, I've never remember Corotare being anywhere else, only playing senior football. It'd be a huge blow to them. They have been playing good football. I've seen them in Cusack Park. I'm very impressed with them, even though they've come up short, but I also know what Clondigad have been doing over the last number of years as well. It's a big ask, because there's a few of them playing hurling as well, and Bellyair are still in the hurling, and that could be a factor as well. But it is the biggest game of the year for the two clubs. It's going to be all on the day. Who knows what kind of a day? It could be a very wet day. It could come down to just a slogging match, if you know what I mean. But definitely need all hands on deck. Definitely, and I don't know if he's around. He'll give a major boost to Corotare to have that kind of a target man, and. It's there's so much at stake, and it's really hard for the team, both of those teams who have just come up short in a few matches, and they find themselves in a relegation battle. It's a very fine margin between between being in the quarter final and being in a relegation playoff. And I feel sorry for whichever team is going to go down. It's going to be very hard to go back down to intermediate. As Seamus said, 2 teams going down, no guarantee you're going to get up for a few years, and it can be very demoralising, So it's unfortunate. It's part of sport. That's why we go to matches, and that's you have to be at your best for every game. Every game is so vital, But this is a big game, and I think Clare were very unlucky to be in this position, and for that reason, I probably just about give them the nod to maintain senior status.
We'll move on to the intermediate grade now, and 4 quarter-finals. To start off with, we're going to start with Kilfenora versus the Banner. I suppose the Banner, obviously, probably one of the great stories of the year. We mentioned Partine actually winning a Junior B, but actually the first county championship of the year was the 2020 Junior A football championship, and that was run by the Banner. And a week later, they followed it up, defeating Rogue, and thus they find themselves in the quarterfinal against a Kilfenora outfit that got through a group that they were expected to get through. The draw with Michael Cusick's first half against Kildysart fairly good, then sort of fell away. So Seamus, looking at this, Banner not going to fear Kilfenora. Kilfenora probably going to be that bit more worried about the Banner. The experience lies with Kilfenora, but the pace of the Banner as well. There wouldn't be a surprise to anyone if the Banner were to take down Kilfenora at the weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd say the Banner, from what I've seen, looked the more evenly balanced team, if you like. They've been very impressive, and they've grown in confidence massively as a result of that Junior A win. A week later, they beat Rogue in the first round of the Intermediate Championship. I know they were well beaten by O'Curry's, but they bounced back and had a good win over Shannon Gales to secure their place in the quarter final. They won't be pushed aside, I can tell you that. Now, obviously, Kilfenora, trained by the very experienced, or managed and trained by the very experienced Aidan O'Keefe, whom we all know what he's capable of. A very shrewd man on the sideline. I suppose they look particularly to Keane O'Dea. He's kind of their main man, and how long he can keep carrying the can that way. He'll be at midfield probably with his brother Jack. Michal Duffy, the Clare coaching officer, will be in the team. They probably have a small panel. They haven't a huge pick. They maybe struggled from time to time for numbers, but they have a very experienced squad. But it's one that's going to be tight, and I wouldn't be surprised. I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if the Banner were to finish on top in this one.
Nicholas, I suppose in a game like this at the weekend, you imagine elements are going to play a big part on it as well. If it's a tight pitch, windy, sort of raining day, that sort of goes with the experienced side who sort of know how to play that type of football, know how to play. While I suppose the Banner will be trying to play that running game off the shoulder at pace as well. So the whole elements of the field, the conditions on the day, that's going to play a big sort of bearing as well, like if there's a big wind there as well. So it's going to be, there's other factors at play, not only aside from the both starting 15s here in Terming, because they both play a different brand of football. Yeah,
since the championship has started, we've had good weather. We've been very lucky. I can't remember any really bad day, but the forecast now and the way this week is panning out, it'll be a different pace in the game and a different, and if you get a bad day, which I don't think Sunday is looking too good, it will have a big bearing in the game, and I think it will suit Kilfenora. The Banner have come out of nowhere as far as I didn't see them coming, and they just seem to have come in, and they're a team now that are going to challenge the other half of Innis, in the coming years for certain, because they really have, they're really setting out their stall really well up there in the Banner. They're only in the road from us there, and we don't hear that much about them in terms of what they're doing. And they have emerged now as a very strong team, and of course they have a few big names up there now as well in the Meehans and that, and fair play to them. You know, hopefully they'll get a dry day, and I think they will challenge, and they certainly have shown that they can. I was surprised they beat Rogue in the first round, and I suppose that was the first time you had to sit up and look and see and have a look at the banner. They've kind of came along under the radar a bit. We all know what Kilfenora are capable of, and we all know that they're a very strong intermediate team, and you know, they won't be found wanting. It could, as you said, it could go down to what type of a day it is. It could go down to weather. It could, under full conditions. Now I walked across Cusick Park, and we haven't seen, you know, that's another week's rain down on top of it. So pitches around the county now, and training wise as well. It's not, the evenings are getting dark as well. Like, but I suppose you have your training done by now anyway. Really, the physical stuff, but to keep you know, the eye in and all that. Like, you know, it's getting more difficult. But in terms of that game, I think experience is going to win out in a big game like that, you know. And I would just say I think Kilfenora will get over the line, but only just if they do.
Nicholas, I bring you on now to an history sort of derby, Shannon Gales versus Kildysart. I know, speaking to a few people back around this sort of direction, Gales feel there's more in them this year. They feel there's that big performance coming in them as well. They're sort of a bit disappointed that they haven't really hit top gear so far in terms of to get into a championship. They played Kildysart. They know each other so well. Kildysart obviously have sort of breezed through, dare I say, to a quarter-final so far. I just got the feeling that Shannon Gales are going to give Kildysart a real test in this one. Do you sort of feel the sense that maybe Gales are going to lift their performance when they see the blue jersey of Kildysart at the weekend, that they're going to step up and maybe Bohannon and Tom Kelly and Jack really test Kildysart's championship credentials?
Well, I think if anyone can test them, it's certainly Shannon Gales, and being an Ayrshire, a local derby, if you like, it's a game for Shannon Gales, really, like, isn't it, to really lift them, you know. And the lads you mentioned there, and Bohannon in particular, you know, would really fight hard for this one. But and the other side of it, in Kildysart are a fine team, and they have proven that over the last number of years, you know, and they have come through that group relatively unscathed, really. You know, but it's like the senior games. These are going to be close games, and a game like that, but there's going to be fierce fight in it. If it's a bad day, the ball can bounce anyway. You know, it's who's going to dig in. And Shannon Gales, as you say, they're looking for a game like this. They're looking for a win like this, you know, to prove their credentials and to prove that they are the side we believe they are. But a lot of experience in that Kildysart team too, and a lot of fine footballers in it as well. And you know, that blue jersey, when they get going, are hard to stop, and they're seasoned. They're really seasoned players in their squad. But you know, I go with Kildysart, but Shannon Gales could they're not called the Gales for nothing. They could come with a storm as well, like, you know.
Seamus, your thoughts on this game? I suppose if you probably look at the marquee sort of forward, you probably say Diarmuid O'Donnell has been kicking, so he's continued his form in terms of kicking big scores in this championship so far. So do Shannon Gales have that sort of inside forward of the Diarmuid O'Donnell's ability in terms of registering the same amount on the score sheet?
I don't think so right now. You know, Kildysart look a very settled team. I saw them a couple of weeks ago in the O'Gorman Cup semi-final against my own club, Lissaghasey. Now, admittedly, Lissaghasey were short a few regulars, but Kildysart on that occasion would not have been out of place in senior competition. They're looking at being in senior grade next year. From what I know and listen to them talking, I think they feel that they're good enough to be there. They have a very settled team. Diarmuid O'Donnell, just say, was flying. Seamus Hayes. Keith O'Connor is an experienced, strong midfielder, you know, and then they have Emmett McMahon, Rory McMahon, they have the Brian Ayres, you know, they have a very, very strong and experienced. Rob Ayres must be one of the more experienced goalkeepers in the county. He played for Clare a couple of years ago. You know, with a massive long kick, we'd kick out, comes upfield, well capable of converting frees from 60 yards in. There's a lot at stake in this game, as you say. They're neighbouring rivals. There's a massive rivalry there. The Crehan brothers, who would be playing in the forward line for Shannon Gales, played all their underage football, and I suppose you could say learned all their football in Kildysart. Then they transferred to the home club of their father, who's a selector with the Gales. They've been dealt a bad blow this week with an injury to Mikey O'Malley, which rules him out, and rules him out for the next couple of weeks. He broke his thumb in the Holland game last weekend, and has the hand encased and plastered. And so he will be a loss to them. There's no doubt about that. I suppose there's huge responsibility on the shoulders of Dara Bohannon, who has had a great year with Clare and everything. But there'll be a lot expected of him to try and give them a grip at midfield in the vital area. So there's a lot at stake, but it will be a surprise if Kildysart aren't preparing for county final come Sunday evening. That's the way I see it. And
county semi-final.
County semi-final, county semi-final come Sunday evening. They are a fairly seasoned and settled team at this stage, and the Gales probably are struggling a bit at the tail end of their team, and they're kind of a smaller panel, and they're struggling a bit that way. So, but it's as you say, it's a local derby, so they will lift their game, and they should nearly be as good as winning a county championship if they were to take down their fancy neighbours in this one. So that'll be a sport for them.
And Seamus, I'll stick with you now for the next game, Coolmeen versus O'Corries. And I said at the start of the year, I thought my O'Corries were one of the dark horses for me for the Intermediate Championship. I know they've done a savage amount of training this year under Ger Quinlan. Their fitness levels are back to where they were 3 or 4 years ago. The word is that it's a very good camp. The morale is very high at the moment back there. They've shown that so far in championship so far. Coolmeen had that big victory against Wolf Tones, but they've come up against O'Corries in the past, Coolmeen, and they haven't been able to get past them. This is a difficult one if Coolmeen produce their best form, but they're going to have to produce their best form, you'd feel, if they're going to trouble O'Corries.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. They're going to have to produce their really best form. O'Corries are a wily crowd, a widely experienced panel. They have a lot of their players have been around for a while, know the ins and outs of what's involved in football. Denny McMahon, their manager, is a shrewd campaigner, has been around a long time, player, manager. Ger Quinlan came in this year as team coach, played for them for many years and carried them, I suppose you could say, for many years as well. He was such an outstanding player for them, and they know what's required to win matches. Coolmeen, I suppose, after a huge first round win over Wolf Tones, probably haven't delivered to the same level of performance since then. And they depend hugely on Cathal O'Connor, I suppose, to give them a grip around the vital midfield area. Then they have the Corrie clan, they depend a bit on them for scores as well. But overall, O'Corries to me are the more settled outfit. They're the more experienced outfit, and that experience I expect will see them into the semi-final.
Nicholas, your thoughts on this? I suppose, people are saying that O'Corries are possibly a team there to upset the apple cart in terms of, I propose, Corofin, Kildysart final day. Coolmeen standing in their path this weekend. I suppose we've written Coolmeen off before. Are we going to be dismissive of them again?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I think O'Corries obviously have the talent and they have the experience, and like Ger Quinlan, and he was Ger Quinlan over them, and showed them the way. It's sure, Coolmeen, I think, they got over Wolf Tones, but Wolf Tones haven't been playing well this year, and they have shown that was a great win for Coolmeen, but I think this is maybe a step too far for them, and I definitely think O'Corries will be in there, and they probably, if they get over this one, I think there will be a tough team, a tough nut to crack in the semi-final.
And that moves us on now to the last game in the Intermediate Championship, and it's the championship favourites, Corofin. They come up against Michael Cusick's side. Corofin, I suppose, have flaunted as well, like Kildysart into this quarter-final stage unfazed. They haven't even had to use Jamie Malone really so far yet this season in terms of injuries. Michael Cusick, they drew with Kilfenora, then they put Liscannor to the sword. They were defeated heavily by Kildysart. So are we judging Michael Cusick on this game based on the Kildysart game, or we're judging what they've done since then? Because Corofin would probably be on the same level or as Kildysart. So Cusick fell at that sort of hurdle. Do you expect them to fall against the hurdle of Corofin as well?
Cusick to me have improved. A couple of years they would have struggled. They won the junior a couple of years ago, but they would have struggled with numbers more than anything else. But they seem well organised this year. They seem to have found a few players that maybe they hadn't had for the last couple of years, and it is a not Clare derby. Now, Corofin are obviously favourites, and they went into last year's final as favourites, and were taken down by St. Joseph's. They went into last weekend's hurling quarter-final against their neighbours Rouen as favourites and came out with a loss, and they were knocked out of the championship. So, I suppose this is their last chance of glory for this year, if you like, and they're trying to go a step more than they went last year. I gather that Jamie Malone, from what I understand, is still out of action. He's had a long, tough year injury-wise and been ruled out of a lot of. I think he hasn't played since back in the first round of the National League when he suffered that injury. Now they're the new men, but what I'm hearing is he won't make it for this weekend. It'll be a couple of weeks yet. And in a tight game, the loss of a man of his capabilities is a massive blow. But they will start as favourites. But they cannot afford to take Cusick slightly. That would be my summation of this one. I expect Corofin to win it, but I think it will be tighter than a lot of the public might feel.
And I suppose Seamus has mentioned points there about Cusick. We know last year they really gave Dora Bearfield a real run for their money, Nicholas, and Dora Bearfield went on to win the championship. But in the likes of Joey Droney inside Donald McMahon involved with the Clare hurlers as well, they're probably two sort of scorers that have shown that they can score big and score heavy so far in the intermediate championship. But probably Corofin have the defenders, and I'm just sort of wondering the inclusion of Killian McGrory now this year as well, another real outstanding talent, and Diarmaid Cahill a year older as well. Do Corofin have the aces maybe to come through this even without Jamie Malone?
Yeah, I think they have. If they had Jamie Malone, you will be giving them, you'll be giving them the really thumbs up, like, but he's a huge loss, a player of his caliber. It's an awful tough year for him. Like, it seems ages and ages ago that he got injured at the far side of the pitch there in a league game. It seems so long ago, and imagine that he's still struggling, and it's an awful shame for such a fine footballer. But getting back to it, you had the two players you mentioned there for Michael Cusick, one very big man and one not so big, a very lively man. McMahon is a very big, strong man, and he'll throw himself around the place, and he's not afraid to, he's not afraid to use his power and his strength. And Droney Dean is a very lively player, as well. Corofin, as Seamus pointed out, Corofin lost against Rouen, a local derby, and one that were probably slight favourites for, and that's only a week ago. So it's a long time. They have to really shake that off. No, it might work to their advantage that they can totally concentrate now on football. But I'm sure the conference will be a little bit rattling, like after last weekend and last year as well. But I think they really have to step up now and take this game by the scruff of the neck. And I think they need to win this one, to prove themselves. And I think they'll back themselves to win it as well. And they have a fine team, and they've been earmarked like all year, like to get back and get into the final. So I think they will have a bit too much for Michael Cusick, and I think they owe that to themselves, and they'll probably say that, and it probably maybe last weekend's loss in the hurling will probably galvanise them to say, look, we have to go out and we have to win this game. on Sunday. So I would be giving Corofin the nod, even without Jeremy Malone.
And Nicholas, I'll stay with you. And for me, anyway, in terms, I know the quarterfinals, they're big games, intermediate championship, but the relegation game, normally people wouldn't take much consideration to the relegation in the intermediate. But we have probably one of the giants of probably in terms of football, in terms of going back 20, 30 years in Clare. To say that come the weekend, come Monday morning, that they could be a junior A club. We talk about Clondigad, Court Clare get dropped intermediate, but it's almost impossible, really imaginable to think that Wolf Tones could be a junior A, or their first team could be a junior A outfit. And I suppose Aero have the capability, to have the players. They've shown that with the draw against Shannon Gales. They show that narrowly losing to a banner in the first game around. Wolf Tones obviously lost out on a quarter-final place on scoring difference in terms of 2 points, and they would have finished ahead of Navone. So this game, in terms of its normosity, in terms of how much it means, do you think maybe the first team element against the second team element is going to play? Because I imagine it's absolutely unforgivable for Wolf Tones if they find themselves a junior A outfit.
Yeah, it's a huge game for Wolf Tones, and as you rightly said, only a few years ago they were in the county final, intermediate county final, and to be fighting in a relegation battle. They didn't get off to a good start this year, and that has really put them in the back foot, and they're struggling. They're a dual club as well, and I suppose they maintain their status as a senior hurling club, but they're going to really have their work cut out, because conference must be at a low wage with them now, being in this relegation battle. But I think they'll really have to. They probably will pull out all the stops to try and stay up. And as you say, to think a town the size of Shannon, and they have so much sport going on in Shannon, to see them go down junior A would be a huge thing. A club like that, they have a great setup. They have wonderful workers. We saw them on Nationwide earlier on this year, the work they did in their clubhouse and the pitch. So they're really going to have to dig deep and really battle their way out of this one and maintain their status. So it's a huge game for them. Absolutely huge game for them.
And I suppose, Seamus, in this terms of the COVID situation, Wolf Tones played against a Coolmean team very under strength that day out. They shipped a heavy scoreline. That has come back to haunt them now. But they did really bounce back, beating Navone. Bush, obviously, Eroga showed in a difficult group that they produced results. I suppose it was a draw neither of them wanted, I suppose, given how this championship has gone for the scanner. But do you feel maybe that the need is probably that bit greater for Wolf Tones, given that they're a first team, and many people would have accepted that Aero could have, a strong possibility Aero could have found themselves in this position this year, while Wolf Tones would have been backed on at least making a quarter-final spot. So how do you read this one?
I think it's going to be very difficult for Wolf Tones. I think I saw Aero in that first round, and a lot of their players are predominantly footballers, and not dual players. A lot of their players, and many of them have played with their senior team in the last year or two, and a couple of more of them, will certainly make their senior team in the next year or two. So they have a lot of experience, and from that point of view, I think that they are determined. From what I know, they're determined that they want to stay up Aero, so they're going to be ready for it. They're managed by former player Brian Fitzpatrick, and he has an experienced team around him, all of whom have played at all levels for Aero, and they're putting in a big effort. Now I know Wolf Tones, Frank Casey is the manager of Wolf Tones, Matt O'Connor, there's a few of them there, and they are very concerned about the position that they find themselves in, because they felt starting out this year that they would be in contention for the intermediate title. So, from that point of view, they're disappointed. And again, like a lot of the championships and a lot of the games we've spoken about tonight, the first rounds were the costly ones for teams who now find themselves in difficulty. Their first round everybody was surprised at the size of the winning margin for Culmeen that day, but it left Wolf Tones kind of reeling, and they haven't really recovered from it. But it's a massive game for them. They don't want to go any lower. They feel that they should be playing senior football, and as you rightly said at the start, they've troubled a lot of the regular senior teams in modern times, and have been in the knockout stages of a senior championship. So there is talent there. It's certainly going to be very interesting to see how it's going to go. At a glance, you'd say the Wolf Tones should win it, but I think that Hero might sneak this one.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Yeah, I think that they might sneak this one.
All right. We'll bring you on now, folks, to the final two games that was up for discussion, the Junior A semi-finals. And obviously the top betting in this encounters an all first team clash in the semi-final. Ballyvaughan versus Clooney Quinn. And I suppose being involved in Clare underage squads, I know that and been for the last 4 or 5 years working with an awful lot of players from Clooney Quinn. I know that the talent that they have in terms of footballers, and once they were the hurling they're interested in the senior hurling, and these boys play football. There's an awful lot of football in them. So this is Ballyvaughan are probably going into this game. You'd say that they have narrowly lost a Junior A county final, but Kilkee were hotly fancied for that Junior A championship, and Clooney Quinn, their footballers were allowed to turn up and play, and they caused wreck. Seamus, your thoughts on this one? It's a difficult one because Clooney Quinn have the footballers that the Banner have, and even some of them are probably a bit better as well in terms of their talent.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they have talent at Clooney Quinn, and I would feel that they should be playing at a higher level.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah,
there are people involved there, who maybe don't want the main hurlers playing football at times. That would seem to be the situation. Now people will say that Clooney Quinn are more dangerous now that they're out of contention in the Senior Hurling Championship. In a more serious situation in the Senior Hurling now than they have been, because of they're in the relegation. They don't want to lose their senior status. So I don't think that'll come into play. That they'll be watching the hurling, but they have the ability to win the junior championship if they have a full squad. They'll take beating. If they have everybody available to them, they will take beating. Ballyvaughan, yes, as you said, they were only in the final there not so long ago, for last year's final. They've been knocking on the door for the last 2 or 3 years, but they haven't the backup. That the likes of Clooney Quinn have in terms of numbers. Ballyvaughan would have a relatively small pick, and I think that would be an issue in this one. If Clooney Quinn have a full squad, I take them to win the game and maybe even go on and win the championship.
Nicholas, your thoughts on this? We've known for the last few years there's been an awful lot of these Clooney Quinn players involved in minor squads like Owen Gilfile, Caleb Byrne, Colin Cassidy, Tomas Carvalhan, Donald Sullivan. The list goes on and on in terms of this. So these boys, they're all athletic, they're all fit, they all have been playing football at a high level, or underage level in A championships, the tops of B championships as well. So if they're really up for this game and really giving it a real crack at this game, this is going to be a difficult task for Ballyvaughan. And I suppose a Ballyvaughan are a seasoned team at this level, and they're well capable of producing results. But it's just going to be a case for Ballyvaughan, if they can produce their ability, their best ability, and Clooney Quinn aren't at the full strength in terms of what they have available to them.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at Clooney Quinn, they're a massive parish. Like Clooney is a big parish in itself. And then you have the whole Quinn and the village of Quinn as well. So they have a big pick and a big area. They're training men down there at hurling and football, and they're a great rural club in that sense. And they put an awful lot of work into their club. They will be keeping an eye on staying up at senior, obviously, in the hurling. But Ballyvaughan come from a real football area, they're a real football, it's football country. You wouldn't, you know, it's looking at Clooney Quinn, you wouldn't say that's football country. But they, you know what I mean? Like, but they have great hurlers who are able to adapt and who have played up along the ranks as well, and played with different teams as well. You know, so it's a contrasting thing there in that alone. But a very strong club, Clooney Quinn, and if they have their full squad, I mean, why wouldn't they have their full squad? I mean, if you have a squad, you have a squad. You can't pick and say you can't play hurling. You could in a club, I would imagine, you can't say, well, the hurlers are playing next week. You have to have your full squad made available to you. I'm sure any club chairman would say, or any club would say that, and I believe that they will have their full squad. So it's as I said, there's a lot of contrast there. Like was Ballyvaughan or North Stooges, and they've been thereabouts as well. So I think maybe Ballyvaughans, that they're a singular club. They don't have anything else distracting them. I think that they will. I would give the nod to Ballyvaughan.
And Nicholas, for the last game, I'll stay with you now. The other semi-final, and two strong senior clubs obviously has played a part in this in terms of their second teams contesting the semi-final. Kilmurry Bricken's second team versus Innisdimon's second team. It's just really, in terms of both these teams, in terms of what players that they have available to them on the day and how much they have lost to their first teams as well.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at Innisdimon and in particular Kilmurry Bricken just grow footballers for every occasion. They're a very strong club and everybody wants to play football, and they have huge numbers playing football. They're a singular club as well. And they have a couple of lads playing hurling with different clubs, all right, but they can really focus on their football. And likewise Innisdimonn have an awful lot of young players who haven't made the senior team as well, who'll be wanting to put up their hand, and a few lads that are more seasoned as well in there. There's nothing to pick between these two. Obviously, when you hear Kilmurry Bricken, you think that they're going to have a very strong second team, and they have a very strong second team, which would obviously make them favourites. But I know myself, and I know a good few of the kids in Innisdimonn, they're second. They have a very strong junior team there as well, and a very strong second squad. So very hard to pick between the two of them, really. But there'll be a bit of bias in that one as well.
And it's a fair assessment to say, Seamus, over the last decade or so, Innisdimonn and Kilmurry Bricken, maybe aside from Rogue, have produced year in, year out the best second teams in Clare Senior Football. So it's no real great surprise to see them at the semi-final stage. So it's just a case of who's available to them and who hits the lights, because there's probably a few players on this team that would have graced both their senior teams and probably disappointed that they aren't in the reckoning for their senior teams.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, and I think particularly so Kilmurry Bricken. Let's say if you look through their squad, you'll find a fair few people with senior championship medals in their amongst their collection. They have an experienced outfit, players who have been involved in senior and who are finishing out their careers, if you like, back at junior level. Innisdimonn had 3 adult football teams this year, all of whom performed very well throughout the leagues, and the 2 of whom are still going strong. In the senior team in the quarterfinal and this team in the junior A semi-final. So they have settled panels and they have experience. I think it'll be a lively game. I think there'll be a lot of good football in this game. It might even surpass the standard of some of the games in the higher grades. I think it's a difficult one to call. I think maybe Kilmurry have a slight bit more experience, but Innisdimonn have been going well at this level, and they're very well organised, and a lot of the players on this squad are training with the senior and pushing hard to get into the senior team. So they have improved. So it's going to be a lively game, and one that could go either way. I'd nearly hesitate to call a winner in this one. The extra time could be required here.
And lastly, guys, before I let you go, I don't have this with me of a fixture. I do believe there's a Junior A relegation is there as well this weekend, Seamus?
No, the Junior A relegation. Is there a Junior A relegation this weekend? I don't think there is.
Okay. I was just.
No, the
Oh,
Junior A.
I knew. I couldn't see it.
No, the Junior A relegation wasn't that decided? Isn't that already decided? Cratloe and Meelick are gone down.
Okay, that's perfect. So
they played last weekend. It was 2 straight games, 2 to go down. Cratloe lost to lost to Clare.
Okay.
And Meelick didn't field against this case.
Okay. On that note,
Jimmy McGee wouldn't have that knowledge.
No, I didn't have it. I was struggling. I was looking through the champions to try and see if I could find it there in terms of that. But those teams, that has been decided. That fate has been decided.
That's decided. Yeah, that's all over.
Yeah, that's all over. And for this weekend, come the conclusion of this weekend, we'll know our 4 teams in the senior semi-finals. We'll know our 4 teams in the intermediate finals. We'll know 2 of the teams, 1 team that's dropped from senior, 1 team that has dropped from intermediate to junior. Plus, we'll also know our pairing for the Junior A county final for this upcoming year. So a feast of football this weekend. Obviously, the following weekend then is a feast of hurling. We'll be back to preview that. But for the moment, this is Jim Conlan here from RCB Radio Sport, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. Take care, good night and stay safe.